The ship was dying. Park Dohan stood in the engine room of the GSV Quiet Dawn and watched the power readings fall toward zero. Around him, his engineers worked in desperate silence, their hands moving fast over broken systems. But Dohan knew the truth. He had known it for 6 hours now. There was nothing left to fix. The colony ship carried 12,000 people, families, children, workers, and doctors and teachers, all traveling to build a new home on a distant world. They had saved for years, planned for decades. And now they would die in the empty space between stars because a power core had failed in a way that should have been impossible. Dohan walked to the communication panel and opened a channel to the bridge. "Captain SCO," he said. His voice was steady. He had practiced keeping it steady. "Engine room report. We cannot repair the core. I am sorry." The silence on the other end lasted a long time. Then Captain SCO Minji spoke. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes, and she had commanded ships for 40 years. Her voice did not shake either. "How long do we have?" "Life support will fail in 19 hours. Maybe 20. "Thank you, Engineer Park. Please join me on the bridge." Dohan closed the channel. He looked at his team. They had stopped working. They were looking at him with eyes that asked questions he could not answer. He wanted to tell them something meaningful, something that would help them face what was coming. But he had no words. He just nodded and walked away. The bridge was quiet when he arrived. Captain SCO stood at the main window, looking out at the stars. The rest of the bridge crew sat at their stations, but no one was working. There was no work left to do. The communication officer had already sent distress calls in every direction. The nearest Confederation outpost was 11 days away at maximum speed. They had 19 hours. "I have told the passengers," SCO said without turning around. "I told them the truth. I thought they deserved that." Dohan moved to stand beside her. "How did they react?" "Some cried. Some prayed. Many are holding their children." She paused. "I wish I could do more for them." "You did everything right, Captain." The core failure was not predictable. No one could have. "I know." She finally looked at him. "I know, but I am still their captain. They trusted me to bring them safely to their new home." The communication panel made a sound. Everyone on the bridge turned to look at it. The officer there, a young man named Kwon Jung-woo, stared at his screen with wide eyes. "Captain," he said, "there is a ship. It just appeared on our sensors." CEO moved quickly to his station. "Confederation?" "No, Captain. The signature is—" "I have never seen this configuration before." He looked up at her. "They are hailing us, on screen." The main display changed from stars to a face. It was not a human face. The being had pale blue skin that seemed almost translucent and large, dark eyes that held a strange depth. Thin tendrils of silver hair floated around her head as if she were underwater. She was old. Dohan could see that somehow, even though he had never seen this species before. "I am Elder Nuri of the Valori vessel Gentle Shadow," the being said. Her voice was soft and musical. "We have heard your distress call. We have come to help." Captain SCO stepped forward. "I am Captain SCO Minji of the human colony ship Quiet Dawn. We are grateful for your response, but I must be honest with you. Our damage is severe. We need a new power core or 12,000 people will die." Elder Nuri was silent for a moment. Then she said, "We know. We felt it." "Felt it?" "We are Valori. We sense the emotions of other beings. When we entered this region of space, we felt your fear, your desperation, your grief." Her dark eyes seemed to look directly into SCO's soul. "We felt parents holding children they thought they would lose. We felt people saying goodbye to each other." Dohan felt a chill move through him. He had heard of empathic species before, but he had never encountered one. "Can you help us?" CO asked. Elder Nuri's expression was difficult to read. "We can, but you must understand something first. The Valori do not interfere in the affairs of other species. This is our oldest law. We have watched civilizations rise and fall, and we have never acted. For 3,000 years, we have kept ourselves apart. Then why did you come? The elder was quiet again. When she spoke, her voice was even softer than before. Because I felt a child on your ship. A small girl. She was afraid, but she was not crying. She was trying to be brave so her mother would not worry. She was thinking about a toy she left behind on your homeworld, and she was sad she would never see it again. Nuri's eyes closed for a moment. I could not fly past that. I could not feel that and do nothing. My crew agrees. Sio's composure finally broke. Tears ran down her face, though her voice stayed firm. What do you need from us? Nothing? We will give you our power core. It will need modification to work with your systems, but your engineers can do this. The core will save your ship. Doan stepped forward. Elder, what will happen to your ship without its core? Nuri looked at him. He felt something strange when her eyes met his, a warmth, a sadness, a profound kindness that seemed to touch something deep inside him. We will survive, she said. We have hibernation systems. We will drift until someone finds us or until we fade away. It does not matter. What matters is that your people live. This is too much, Saya said. We cannot accept a sacrifice like this. There must be another way. There is no other way. And this is not your choice, Captain. It is mine, Nuri smiled. It was a gentle smile, full of peace. I have lived a very long time. I have seen much. I have always followed my people's law of non-interference because I believed it was wise. But wisdom without compassion is empty. I understand that now. The power core transfer took 7 hours. The Lori engineers worked beside human engineers, their movements graceful and precise. Doan worked harder than he had ever worked in his life, connecting systems, rerouting power, testing every circuit. When the new core finally came online and the lights of the quiet dawn grew bright again, a sound rose through the ship. It was the sound of 12,000 people crying with relief. But there was no celebration on the bridge. Captain Seo and Park Doan stood at the window and watched the Valori ship go dark. Its systems were shutting down one by one. Soon it would be cold and silent, drifting through space with its crew asleep inside. Perhaps forever, Elder Nuri had come aboard the quiet dawn for the final hour of the transfer. She wanted to see the humans she had saved. She walked through the corridors slowly, looking at the families, the children, the old and the young. She did not speak to anyone. She just watched and felt and smiled. Now she stood on the bridge and Doan could see that she was fading. The effort of the transfer had cost her something vital. You have given us everything, Seo said. How can we ever repay you? Nuri reached out and touched Seo's hand. Her fingers were cool and light. Remember us, she said. That is all. Remember that the Valori were here and that we chose kindness. That is payment enough, she looked at Doan. You will tell this story, yes? He nodded. He could not speak. His throat was too tight. Good, she smiled one last time. Then we will never truly be gone? Elder Nuri returned to her ship. 1 hour later, the gentle shadow systems went fully dark. Doan watched it until it disappeared into the black. He went to his quarters and began to write. He recorded every detail of what had happened. The failure, the rescue, the sacrifice. He recorded Nuri's words exactly as she had spoken them. He saved the files in every format, in every backup system, in every place he could think of. Then he made a promise. He made it out loud, alone in his small room, with tears on his face. We will remember, he said. And we will repay this debt. I swear. However long it takes, whatever it costs, humanity will repay it. The quiet dawn flew on toward its destination. Its passengers lived. They built their colony. They raised their children and their children's children, and they never forgot. 200 years passed. Humanity grew. They spread across dozens of worlds, built great cities, and joined the Galactic Confederation as a minor member. Other species saw them as useful but unremarkable. Humans lived short lives and had limited natural abilities. They were not strong like the Korath, not brilliant like the Mindari, not ancient like the Voss. They were simply humans, average, forgettable, but the humans remembered everything. Admiral Yun Hana stood in her office aboard the HSS Resolve, flagship of the human border fleet. She was a tall woman with sharp features and calm eyes. She had served in the fleet for 30 years, and she had commanded it for 10. In that time, she had never lost a battle. Some called her the finest military mind humanity had ever produced. But today she was not thinking about battles. She was reading a file she had read 1,000 times before. The file was called the Valori Debt. Her family had passed down the story for generations. Her great-great-grandmother had been a child on the quiet dawn when the Valori saved it. Hannah had grown up hearing about Elder Nuri and the sacrifice of the gentle shadow. She had visited the memorial on New Haven, where the colony ship's passengers had finally settled. She had stood before the statue of Nuri and felt the weight of a promise that was 2 centuries old. Now that promise was about to be tested. Her communication panel lit up. She touched it. Admiral Yoon here. Admiral, intelligence report from Sector 7. Priority 1. Hannah straightened. Send it through. The report appeared on her screen. She read it quickly, then read it again more slowly. Her hands began to shake. She pressed them flat against her desk and forced herself to breathe. Velar Prime, the Valori homeworld. Target of invasion by the Dominion of Krath, estimated Valori population, fewer than 10,000. Krath fleet strength, 500 warships. Invasion begins in 30 days. The Krath were harvesters. They attacked weaker species and took them apart for biological resources. Their victims were never seen again. Hannah closed the file. She sat in silence for a long time. Then she opened a channel to Fleet Command and requested an emergency meeting of the Human Coalition Assembly. The assembly chamber was full when Hannah arrived. Representatives from every human world sat in their places, talking quietly among themselves. They fell silent when she walked to the central platform. "Thank you for gathering on short notice," Hannah said. "I will not waste your time. You have all received the intelligence report about Velar Prime. The Valori are facing extinction. They have no military. They have no allies. They will be completely destroyed within 1 month." A representative from one of the inner worlds raised his hand. His name was Du Sungyan, and he was known for his practical approach to politics. "Admiral, this is a tragedy, but I must ask the obvious question. What does this have to do with us? The Valori are not Confederation members. They have never asked for human help. Why are we discussing this?" "Because we owe them." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Hannah waited for them to quiet. 200 years ago, a Valori ship found our colony vessel Quiet Dawn stranded in deep space. 12,000 humans were about to die. The Valori gave us their power core and saved every single life on that ship. Their captain, Elder Nuri, died from the effort. The rest of the crew went into hibernation and were never heard from again. She paused. They asked for nothing except that we remember them. We built memorials. We taught the story in our schools. We said we would never forget. But remembering is not enough. It was never enough. Du Singyan shook his head. "Admiral, I respect the history. I truly do. But you are asking us to go to war with the Krath Dominion. They have 500 ships. We have 200. You are asking us to sacrifice human lives for a species most of us have never met." "Yes," Hannah said. "That is exactly what I am asking." The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted over each other. Some demanded more information, others called for a vote, and a few were already walking toward the exits. Hannah stood still and let the noise wash over her. She had expected this. She knew what needed to happen next. "I would like to speak." The voice was old and quiet, but somehow it cut through the chaos. The chamber fell silent again. Everyone turned to look at the man who had risen from his seat in the back row. His name was Beek Jasu. He was 93 years old, a historian who had spent his life studying human culture and tradition. He walked slowly to the platform, leaning on a cane. Hannah stepped aside to let him take her place. I am a descendant of Park Doan, Beak said. He was the chief engineer of the Quiet Dawn. He was the one who swore the oath that began all of this. He was my ancestor, and I have his records. All of them. He reached into his coat and removed a small device. He placed it on the platform, and a holographic display appeared. It showed a recording, old and slightly damaged, but clear enough. The image was Park Doan's face. He was young, maybe 30 years old. His eyes were red from crying, but his voice was strong. I am making this record so that no one will ever forget what happened today, the recording said. The Valori saved us. They gave us everything they had. Elder Nuri said that we only needed to remember them, but that is not enough. That can never be enough. A debt like this must be repaid. I do not know how. I do not know when. But I swear on my life and the lives of my children and all the generations that will come after me, humanity will find a way. We will repay what we owe. This I promise. The recording ended. The chamber was completely silent. Beak Jesu looked around at the representatives. 200 years, he said. For 200 years we have told ourselves that we are honorable people. We have built statues and held ceremonies and taught our children about the Valori sacrifice. We have been very proud of how well we remember. His voice hardened. But memory without action is just a story. It is just words. The Valori did not give us words. They gave us their lives. And now they need us, and we are sitting here talking about numbers and politics and whether it is practical to help them. He turned to face the main assembly directly. I am an old man. I will not live to see how this decision shapes our future. But you will. Your children will. And I'm telling you now, if we abandon the Valori, we abandon everything we claim to be. We become liars. We become oath breakers. We become the kind of people who take and never give back. He shook his head slowly. I would rather die than be that kind of human. I would rather send every ship we have into battle and lose them all than break the promise my ancestor made. He stepped back from the platform. Hannah watched the representatives. She saw doubt on some faces, fear on others. But she also saw something else. She saw shame. She saw people looking at themselves and not liking what they found. Representative Dusunyan stood. His expression had changed. I move that we vote immediately, he said. All in favor of sending the fleet to Velar Prime to honor our debt to the Valori, say yes. The vote was unanimous. Hannah returned to the Resolve that night and began planning the mission. She would take every available warship, 212 vessels in all. She would also take 30 support ships carrying supplies, medical equipment, and evacuation transports. If there were survivors on Velar Prime, she would bring them out. Her officers gathered in the war room. She looked at each of them in turn. Commander Shin Tai-Wu, her second-in-command, a man who could find weakness in any enemy formation. Lieutenant Kang Yunji, the best pilot in the fleet, who had never backed down from any fight. Chief Engineer Moon Jin-ho, who could keep ships running on nothing but willpower. Dr. Oyuna, the Chief Medical Officer, who had saved more lives than anyone could count. You know the mission, Hannah said. You know the odds. I will not order anyone to come. This has to be a choice. Shin Tai-Wu smiled. It was a hard smile, but there was warmth in it. Admiral, we have been waiting our whole lives for this. We are not staying behind. The others nodded. Kang Yunji actually laughed. 2-to-1 odds? I have had worse. You have not, Moon Jin-ho said. But I agree. We go. Hannah felt something loosen in her chest. Pride, maybe. Or hope. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. Her voice reached every ship, every crew member, every officer and enlisted sailor who would be flying into battle with her. This is Admiral Yun Hannah in 6 hours. We depart for Velar Prime. We go to repay a debt that is 200 years old. We go to keep a promise that our ancestors made. The enemy is strong, and there is a good chance that many of us will not return. But I want you to understand why we are doing this. We are doing it because the Valori saved us when we were helpless. We are doing it because they asked for nothing in return. We are doing it because we are humans, and humans do not forget. We remember, and we repay." She paused. "I am proud to serve with all of you. I will see you at Velar Prime." She closed the channel and turned to face the stars. Somewhere out there, a small and dying species was waiting for help that they did not know was coming. Hannah smiled. "Hold on," she whispered. "We are coming." The fleet flew in silence. 212 warships moved through space in perfect formation. No signals went out. No messages were sent. Every communication system was dark. The only sound was the hum of engines and the quiet breathing of crews waiting for battle. Admiral Yun Hannah stood on the bridge of the flagship Remembrance, watching the stars pass by on the main screen. They had been traveling for 12 days. In 8 more, they would reach Velar Prime. She had spent those 12 days planning, training, and preparing her people for what was coming. But now, in this quiet moment, she let herself think about what it all meant. 200 years ago, her ancestors had been saved by strangers who wanted nothing in return. Now she was leading a fleet to save those strangers' descendants. The circle was closing. The debt was coming due. "Admiral?" Commander Shin Taiwu approached from the tactical station. "The latest sensor readings. No sign that the craft know we are coming." "Good. What about our ships? Any problems?" "A few minor engine issues on the smaller cruisers. Chief Engineer Moon has teams working on them. He says everything will be ready." Hannah nodded. Moon Jinho had kept ships running through worse situations than this. If he said the fleet would be ready, it would be ready. "And the crew?" Taiwu paused before answering. "They are afraid, Admiral. But they are also determined. I have never seen anything like it. Everyone knows the odds. Everyone knows this might be a one-way trip. But no one is asking to stay behind. Not one person. They understand what we are doing." "Yes, they do." He looked at her directly. "Admiral, I need to say something. I have served under many commanders. You are the finest of them. Whatever happens at Velar Prime, I want you to know that I am honored to be here." Hannah felt emotion rise in her throat, but she kept her face calm. "Thank you, Commander. The honor is mine." Taiwu returned to his station. Hannah continued to watch the stars. Down in the pilot-ready room, Lieutenant Kang Yunji sat at a small desk, writing on a data pad. Around her, other pilots were checking their gear, talking quietly, or trying to sleep. The room was tense but not panicked. These were professionals. They knew what was coming, and they were preparing for it the only way they knew how. Yunji was writing a letter to her family. She did not know if she would be able to send it. Communications were blocked until after the battle. But she wanted the words to exist, just in case. "Dear Mother and Father," she wrote. "Dear little brother, I hope you understand why I'm doing this. I know you are afraid for me. I am afraid too. But there are some things more important than fear. The Valori saved us once. Now we have a chance to save them. If I die doing that, I will die knowing I did the right thing. Please do not be sad for me. Be proud. I love you all, Yunji." She saved the letter and put the datapad away. Then she went to check her fighter one more time. In the engine room of the Remembrance, Chief Engineer Moon Jinho was covered in grease and sweat. He had been working for 18 hours straight, moving from system to system, testing everything twice. His crew had learned not to bother him when he was in this mood. They just followed his orders and stayed out of his way. "Power coupling on Deck 7 is repaired," one of his engineers reported. That was the last one. Moon wiped his face with a rag that was already dirty. "Good, run a full diagnostic on all primary systems. I wanted to know if anything even thinks about failing." "Yes, Chief." Moon looked around the engine room. This was his home. He knew every pipe, every wire, every component that kept the ship alive. He had served on the Remembrance for 15 years, and he had kept her running through battles, storms, and accidents that should have destroyed her. Now he would ask her to do the impossible one more time. "Hold together," he whispered to the ship. "Just a little longer. Hold together for me. In the medical bay, Dr. Oyuna was organizing supplies. She had every bed prepared, every surgical tool sterilized, every medicine cataloged and ready. Her staff moved around her with quiet efficiency, following the routines she had drilled into them. Yuna knew what was coming. She had served as a military doctor for 20 years, and she had seen the aftermath of too many battles. She knew what plasma burns looked like, what explosive decompression did to a human body, what it meant to lose patients faster than she could save them. She had nightmares about those things, but she also knew something else. She knew that her work mattered. Every life she saved was a person who would go home to their family. Every wound she closed was a story that would continue instead of ending. That was why she did this job. That was why she was here, Dr. O. One of her nurses approached. All preparations are complete. We are ready. Yuna nodded. Good, get some rest while you can. When the battle starts, we will not stop until it is over. The nurse left. Yuna sat down in her office and allowed herself 1 minute of quiet. She thought about her parents who had wanted her to be a research scientist. She thought about her sister who did not understand why she had joined the military. She thought about all the choices that had led her to this moment. Flying toward a battle she might not survive, she did not regret any of them on the 18th day. Admiral Hannah gathered the entire crew of the Remembrance in the main hangar. Similar gatherings were happening on every ship in the fleet. This was the final briefing before they reached Velar Prime. In 2 days, we will enter the Velar system, Hannah said. Her voice carried clearly through the huge space. Our scouts report that the Kroth fleet is already in orbit around the planet. They have begun landing troops. The invasion has started? A murmur went through the crowd. Hannah raised her hand and they fell silent. The Kroth have over 500 warships. We have 212. By any normal calculation, we should not be able to win this fight. She paused. But we are not here to make normal calculations. We are here to repay a debt. We are here to keep a promise. And we are here to show the galaxy what humans do when someone saves their lives. She looked around at the faces watching her. She saw fear, yes, but she also saw determination. She saw people who understood exactly what they were about to do and why. 200 years ago, Elder Nuri of the Valori gave everything she had to save 12,000 humans she had never met. She did not ask if it was practical. She did not calculate the odds. She simply saw people who needed help, and she helped them. That is what we are going to do. We are going to help the Valori because they helped us. We are going to fight for them because they fought for us. And if we die doing it, we will die knowing that we kept our word. She straightened her shoulders. I will not lie to you. Many of us will not come home from this battle. I wish I could promise you otherwise, but I cannot. What I can promise you is this. What we do in the next 2 days will be remembered forever. Our children will tell this story to their children. 100 years from now, people will still talk about what happened at Velar Prime. They will talk about us. They will talk about what we did and why we did it and what it meant. Her voice grew stronger. So, when the fight begins, remember that you are not just fighting for the Valori. You are fighting for every human who comes after us. You are showing them who we are and what we stand for. You are proving that humanity keeps its promises. She saluted. I am proud of all of you. Now go to your stations. We have a debt to repay. The crew dispersed. Hannah returned to the bridge and took her seat in the command chair. Through the main window, she could see the stars ahead. Somewhere beyond them, Velar Prime was waiting. Admiral. Tai Wu approached her station. We are receiving a transmission from the fleet. All ships report ready for battle. All ships? All ships. Every single one. Hannah smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. Take us in, Commander. Maximum speed. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel. The stars stretched into lines of light, and the Remembrance shot forward into the darkness. 20-6 hours later, they dropped back into normal space at the edge of the Velar system. The main screen lit up with contacts. Hannah counted them quickly. 512 Krath warships arranged in a defensive formation around the planet. They were huge, brutal vessels, built for destruction. A communication signal came in. Hannah nodded to her officer. Put them through. The face that appeared on screen was not human. It was Krath, a heavy, brutal species with thick gray skin and small dark eyes. This was Warlord Torvin, commander of the invasion fleet. Human vessels, Torvin said. His voice was deep and harsh. You are trespassing in Krath territory. Explain your presence or be destroyed. Hannah stood up from her chair. I am Admiral Yunhana of the Human Coalition Fleet. We are here to evacuate the Valori. Stand down and let us pass. Torvin's face twisted into something that might have been a smile. The Valori are our property. They belong to us. And you are outnumbered more than 2 to 1. Do you really think you can fight us? We are not here to think, Hannah said. We are here to collect our people. Stand aside, Warlord. This is your only warning. Torvin stared at her. She could see the confusion in his eyes. He did not understand. The Valori were not humans. Why would humans die for them? It made no sense to him. You are insane, he said finally. You will all die here. Maybe, Hannah said. But we will not leave without the Valori. She cut the transmission. The screen went dark. Commander Shin, she said calmly. All ships to battle stations. Prepare to engage the enemy. The alarms began to sound. Across the fleet, crews ran to their positions. Weapons powered up. Shields activated. Fighters launched from hangar bays. Admiral Yunhana looked at the Krath fleet on her screen. 500 ships. Overwhelming force. Impossible odds, she smiled again. Let us begin. The first shots lit up the darkness of space. Admiral Yunhana watched the battle begin from the Bridge of the Remembrance. The Krath fleet moved forward in a massive wave, their ships firing heavy weapons that turned the void into a storm of light and fire. The human fleet responded with precise, coordinated strikes that targeted the joints of the enemy formation. Focus fire on their lead ships, Hannah ordered. Break their momentum before they can surround us. Commander Shin Tai-Wu worked at the tactical station, his hands moving fast over the controls. Strike Groups 2 and 5, target the enemy vanguard. Groups 1 and 3, hold the flanks. Group 4, protect the transports. The battle was chaos, but it was organized chaos. Hannah had planned for this. She knew the human fleet could not match the Krath in raw firepower, so she had designed tactics that used speed and coordination instead. Human ships were smaller and faster. They could move around the heavy Krath, vessels like water flowing around rocks, but rocks could still crush you if there were enough of them. Admiral, we have lost the cruiser Starfall, the sensor officer reported. The destroyer Bravewing is heavily damaged and withdrawing. Tell Bravewing to fall back to the support line. Redirect Group 6 to cover the gap. The battle was 15 minutes old, and Hannah had already lost ships. She would lose many more before it was over. She knew that. She had accepted it before they left human space. But every loss still hurt. Every ship was a crew. Every crew was made of people who had trusted her to lead them. She pushed the pain aside. There would be time for grief later. Right now, she had a battle to win. Commander Shin, what is the status of the strike force? Tai-Wu looked up from his station. His face was grim but determined. Ready to launch on your order, Admiral. Then go. Take out their command ship. Tai-Wu saluted and left the bridge. A few minutes later, his personal cruiser and 20 escort fighters broke away from the main fleet and dove straight toward the center of the Krath formation. It was a suicide mission in everything but name. The odds of survival were almost zero. But if they could destroy Warlord Torvin's flagship, the Krath fleet would lose its coordination. Hannah watched the strike force disappear into the enemy swarm. She whispered a prayer for them, even though she was not religious. Sometimes you had to believe in something. In the fighter squadrons, Lieutenant Kang Yunji was fighting for her life. Her wing had been assigned to protect the troop transports, heading down to the planet's surface. The Krath were trying desperately to stop them, and Yunji's pilots were all that stood in the way. She had started with 40 fighters. She was down to 23. "Viper Squadron, form up on me," she ordered through the communication channel. "We have incoming from the port side. 12 Krath fighters. Break and engage." She threw her fighter into a hard turn and opened fire. Her weapons tore through a Krath ship, sending it spinning away in flames. Another one came at her from below, and she rolled to avoid its shots, then came around and destroyed it with a burst to the engines. "Lieutenant, I have 2 on my tail," one of her pilots called. "I cannot shake them." Yunji checked her sensors. The pilot was Ruji-wan, a young man on his first combat mission. He was a good flyer, but he was scared. She could hear it in his voice. "Hold steady, Ru. I am coming." She pushed her engines to maximum and raced toward his position. The 2 Krath fighters were right behind him, firing constantly. His shields were failing. He had seconds left. Yunji came in from above, diving down on the enemy ships like a hawk. She destroyed the first one with a direct hit to the cockpit. The second one tried to turn toward her, but she was faster. She put 3 shots into its fuel tank, and it exploded in a ball of fire. "You are clear, Ru. Get back in formation." "Thank you, Lieutenant. I owe you. You can buy me a drink when this is over. Now focus." She looked at the transports. They were almost through. Just a few more minutes, and the ground teams would reach the planet. She just had to keep the Krath away for a few more minutes. A warning alarm screamed in her cockpit. She looked at her sensors and saw a wave of enemy fighters coming toward them. 50 ships. More than twice what she had left. Yunji took a breath. "All pilots, this is it. Everything we have. Protect those transports no matter what." She flew forward to meet the enemy on the surface of Velar Prime. Sergeant Hanmai led her squad through the ruins of the capital city. The Krath had been here for days, and the destruction was terrible. Buildings were collapsed. Streets were filled with rubble. Bodies lay everywhere. Mare did not let herself look at the bodies. She could not afford to. She had a mission to complete. "Sergeant, I have movement ahead," her point man reported. "Looks like Krath soldiers? 10 of them. Maybe more. Take cover." We go around. The squad moved through the destroyed buildings, avoiding the enemy patrol. They were looking for the main Valori shelter, where the last survivors were supposedly hiding. Intel said there were a few thousand Valori left. Maybe less. Mire had studied the Valori before the mission. She knew what they had done for humanity 200 years ago. She knew about Elder Nuri and the gentle shadow and the sacrifice that had saved 12,000 lives. She had seen the recordings of Park Doan making his oath. Now she was here to keep that oath. It felt strange, being part of something so much bigger than herself. Strange, but also right. "Sergeant, I see the shelter." Her scout was pointing toward a large building at the end of the street. It was damaged, but still standing. Multiple life signs inside, Valori and Krath. The enemy has them surrounded. Mire looked at the building. She counted the Krath soldiers guarding it. At least 50 of them, with heavy weapons and armored vehicles. Her squad had 12 Marines. "We cannot fight through that," her second-in-command said quietly. "We need backup." "There is no backup." "We are it," Mire thought for a moment. "But we do not need to fight through. We just need to get inside. Once we reach the Valori, we can call for evacuation." "How do we get inside?" Mire looked at the building again. There was a side entrance, partially hidden by rubble. If they moved fast enough and quiet enough, they might be able to reach it before the Krath noticed them. It was a terrible plan. But it was the only plan they had. "We go through the side. Stay low, stay quiet. Do not engage unless you have to." The squad moved out. They crossed the open ground in short bursts, using cover wherever they could find it. Mireille's heart was pounding. Every second she expected to hear the sound of Krath weapons opening fire. They reached the side entrance without being seen. Mire breathed a silent thanks and led her squad inside. The building was dark and quiet. They moved through empty hallways, following their sensors toward the life signs. The Valori were close now. Just a few more rooms. They turned a corner and found them. There were maybe 2,000 Valori in the large hall. They were huddled together, the young protected by the old, the weak supported by the strong. They looked up at the humans with huge dark eyes full of fear. An elderly Valori stepped forward. He was frail and bent, but he carried himself with dignity. "Who are you?" he asked. "What do you want with us?" Myray removed her helmet so he could see her face. "I am Sergeant Han Myray of the Human Coalition Marines. We are here to rescue you." The elder stared at her. "Rescue us? But why?" "We are nothing to you. We are not your people." Myray pointed to the patch on her shoulder. It showed a name, Park Doan. 200 years ago, a Valori ship saved 12,000 humans. The captain was named Elder Nuri. She asked us to remember her people. We remember. Myray looked at the frightened faces around her. "And now we are here to repay our debt. All of you are coming with us. Every single one." The elder's eyes filled with tears. "You remembered," he whispered. "After all this time, you remembered." "Yes, and we are not leaving without you. Now, please, we need to move." "Can your people walk?" "We will walk. We will run if we must." The elder turned to his people and spoke quickly in their language. The Valori began to stand, helping each other up, gathering their children. Myray opened her communication channel. "This is Sergeant Han to Fleet Command. We have the Valori survivors. Requesting immediate evacuation. I say again, we have the survivors. Get us out of here." In orbit, the battle was reaching its peak. Commander Shin Tai-Wu's strike force had fought their way to the center of the Krath formation. They had lost half their ships, but they were still moving forward. Torvin's flagship was right in front of them, a massive vessel bristling with weapons. "All ships, concentrate fire on the flagship's engines," Tai-Wu ordered. "If we can cripple it, the rest of their fleet will fall apart." His ships attacked together, pouring everything they had into the enemy flagship. The Krath vessel's shields began to fail. Explosions rippled across its hull, but the flagship was fighting back. One by one, Tai-Wu's escorts were destroyed. He watched them die on his sensors, each one a friend he had served with for years. Finally, only his ship was left. "Commander, our weapons are nearly depleted," his pilot reported. "We have maybe one more shot." Tai-Wu looked at the flagship. Its engines were damaged but not destroyed. One more hit might finish them. One more hit, he made his decision. Set collision course. All power to forward shields. "Commander?" "Do it," the cruiser surged forward. The Krath flagship tried to turn away, but it was too slow. Tai-Wu's ship hit it at full speed, driving deep into its engine section. The explosion was enormous. When it cleared, the flagship was dark, dead. Warlord Torvin was gone. Across the Krath fleet, the effect was immediate. Without their command ship, the enemy vessels began to lose formation. Some tried to continue fighting. Others turned to retreat. The coordination that had made them so dangerous was broken. On the Remembrance, Admiral Hana saw it happen. She allowed herself one moment of grief for Shin Tai-Wu. Then she gave the order that would end the battle. "All ships, full attack. Drive them back. And get those transports to the surface now." The human fleet surged forward. The Krath, already shaken, began to break. One by one, their ships turned and fled. Within an hour, the battle was over. Humanity had won. On the surface, the evacuation transports landed in the ruined city. Sergeant Han Myray led the Valori survivors out of the building and toward the waiting ships. Krath soldiers tried to stop them, but the Marines held them off. The elder walked beside Myray. He was weeping openly now, but he was also smiling. "I never thought this day would come," he said. "I never thought anyone would remember us." Myray helped him up the ramp of the transport. "We will always remember," she said. "That is who we are." The transports lifted off. The Valori were safe. In orbit, Admiral Yun Hana watched the last Krath ships disappear into faster-than-light travel. The battle was over. They had won. Against all odds, against every calculation, they had won. She should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt tired and sad. They had lost 63 ships, thousands of lives. Good people who would never go home, but the Valori were saved. Every single one of them. Hannah closed her eyes. We kept our promise, she whispered. We repaid the debt. It was enough. It had to be enough. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. The Battle of Velar Prime was on every broadcast, in every data network, discussed in every station and colony and homeworld. The story was simple and shocking. Humanity, a minor species with a small fleet, had gone to war against the Dominion of Krath to save the Valori. They had been outnumbered more than 2 to 1. They had won. And they had done it to repay a debt that was 200 years old. The galaxy did not know what to make of it. Ambassador Choi Yaren stood in the great chamber of the Galactic Confederation Assembly. Around her, representatives from over 400 species watched from their seats. The chamber was silent, but she could feel the tension in the air. She could feel the fear. That was what surprised her the most. The fear. The High Chancellor of the Confederation, a Mindari with silver skin and cold eyes, spoke first. Ambassador Choi, you have requested this session to explain your government's actions. We are prepared to listen. But I must tell you that many members of this assembly are deeply concerned about what humanity has done. Yaren nodded. I understand, High Chancellor. I will try to address those concerns. Concerned is not a strong enough word. The speaker was a Korath representative, a massive being with thick armor plates covering his body. You launched an unprovoked attack on a sovereign power. You interfered in their internal affairs. You killed thousands of Krath soldiers. To save the Valori from extinction, Yaren said calmly. The Valori are not Confederation members. They have never asked for Confederation protection. What gave humanity the right to intervene? Yaren looked at him steadily. 200 years ago, the Valori saved 12,000 human lives. They asked for nothing in return except that we remember them. We remembered. And when they needed help, we helped them. That is what gave us the right. Another representative spoke up. This one was from the Voss, an ancient species known for their wisdom and their careful neutrality. Ambassador, I have studied your history. I know about the Quiet Dawn and the sacrifice of the Valori ship. It is a moving story. But what you have done goes far beyond repaying a simple debt. You have demonstrated that humanity will go to war for species it has no formal alliance with. You will sacrifice your own people for strangers. Do you not see how dangerous that is? Dangerous to whom? Yaren asked. The Voss representative did not answer. He did not need to. Yaren understood what he meant. It was dangerous to them. To the Confederation. To every species that had spent centuries building careful systems of treaties and alliances and calculations of power. Humanity had ignored all of that. They had acted on something older and simpler, a promise, and that terrified them. Yaren took a step forward. Let me tell you what I think is really happening here. You are not angry at us for attacking the Krath. You are afraid of us because we kept our word. You are afraid because you do not understand why we did it, and you cannot predict what we will do next. She looked around the chamber. You think in terms of advantage and cost. You ask what benefit we gained from saving the Valori. You ask what strategic value they have. And the answer is none. They have no military. They have no resources we need. They cannot help us in any political struggle. We saved them because we owed them. That is all. The High Chancellor leaned forward. And if someone else saved humans in the past? Some other species we have never heard of? Would you go to war for them too? Yes. The chamber went completely silent. That is what I thought, the High Chancellor said quietly. That is what frightens us, Ambassador. We have never encountered a species that thinks this way. Most civilizations grow out of such emotional attachments. They learn to make decisions based on logic and advantage. But you do the opposite. You hold on to old promises. You let the past control your future. It is irrational. It is dangerous. Maybe, Yaren said. But it is who we are. And I do not think it is as irrational as you believe. She turned to address the full assembly. Yes, we went to war for the Valori because of a 200-year-old debt. But think about what that means. It means that if you help humanity, we will remember. We will not forget our allies when they become inconvenient. We will not abandon them when the situation changes. We will stand with them no matter what. She paused to let that sink in. You call us emotional. You call us irrational. But I call us reliable. I call us loyal. And in a galaxy where alliances shift with every change in power, where treaties are broken as soon as they stop being useful, maybe that is worth something. Maybe that is exactly what you need. The chamber was quiet for a long time. Finally, the High Chancellor spoke again. We will consider your words, Ambassador. This session is concluded. Yaren bowed and left the chamber. In the weeks that followed, the political landscape of the galaxy began to shift. Some species pulled away from humanity. They were the powerful ones, the ones who had always relied on their own strength. They did not want allies who might drag them into wars over old debts. They kept their distance and watched the humans carefully, but other species moved closer. They were the smaller ones, the weaker ones, the ones who had always lived in fear of being conquered or absorbed or forgotten. They heard the story of Velar Prime, and they saw something they had never seen before, a species that would fight for them. A species that kept its promises. Delegations began arriving at human space stations. Trade agreements were proposed. Alliances were discussed. For the first time in their history, humans found themselves at the center of a growing network of loyal friends, and the Valori came with them, the survivors of Velar Prime. All 7,000 of them requested permission to settle in human territory. They wanted to be close to the people who had saved them. They wanted to learn from them, work with them, build a future together. Admiral Yunhana personally welcomed the first Valori ships to their new home. She stood on the observation deck of the station and watched them arrive, one by one. Their graceful vessels landing gently in the docking bays, the elder she had rescued. Keeper Solon came to stand beside her. He was weak from the journey, but his eyes were bright. We have discussed what name to call this place, he said. Our new home. We want to call it Nuri's Landing. After the captain who started all of this, Hannah felt tears in her eyes. I think that is perfect. Admiral, I must ask you something. Why did you really come for us? The true reason. I have heard the speeches about debt and honor, but there must be more. Hannah thought about the question for a long time. I came because of a little girl, she said finally. A little girl? My ancestor. She was a child on the quiet dawn when your people saved it. Nuri mentioned her in her last transmission. She said the girl was trying to be brave so her mother would not worry. She said she was thinking about a toy she had left behind. Hannah smiled. That girl grew up and had children, and they had children, and eventually one of them was me. My whole life I heard the story of how the Valori saved us. And I always imagined that little girl being so brave. I always wondered what her life would have been like if the Valori had not come. She looked at Solon. That is why I came. Because someone saved a scared little girl 200 years ago? Because that girl grew up and told her children what happened. Because those children told their children. Because a good act, a kind act, does not just disappear. It echoes, it spreads. It creates more good acts. She put her hand on the old Valori's shoulder. Nuri saved one little girl. And 200 years later, her descendants saved your entire species. That is what kindness does. That is why it matters. Solon was weeping now. So was Hannah. They stood together and watched the Valori ships land, one after another, bringing a dying people home. 50 years later, a young man named Park Minho walked through the memorial garden on Nuri's Landing. He was 18 years old, a student, a descendant of the original Park Doan, who had sworn the oath on the quiet dawn. He had come here to see the monument for himself. The garden was beautiful. Trees and flowers from both Earth and Velar grew side by side, blending into something new and strange and wonderful. In the center stood a great statue of two figures, a human and a Valori. Hands clasped together, looking up at the stars. Around the base of the statue were names. Thousands of names. Humans who had died in the Battle of Velar Prime. Valori who had died on the Gentle Shadow 250 years ago. All of them together, remembered at last. Misho found the name he was looking for. Park Doan, his ancestor. The man who had started everything. "Hello," he said quietly. "I wanted to see this place. I wanted to understand what you did. What all of you did." He looked at the names for a long time. "I think I understand now. I think it was about more than paying back a debt. It was about proving something. Proving that good acts matter. Proving that kindness does not disappear. Proving that when someone saves your life, the right thing to do is save someone else's life. And then they save someone else, and it never stops." He touched the statue's base. The stone was warm from the sun. "I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to try to be the kind of person who pays it forward. Not because I have to, because it is right. Because that is who we are supposed to be." A shadow fell over him. He turned and saw an elderly Valori standing nearby, watching him with kind, dark eyes. The Valori smiled. "You are a descendant of Park Doan," the Valori said. It was not a question. "Yes. How did you know?" "I saw it in you." The same look he had in the old recordings. The same determination. The Valori looked at the statue. "My grandmother was on the Gentle Shadow. She went into hibernation with the rest of the crew. They were never found. But I like to think that she knew somehow that her sacrifice would lead to this. To our species being saved. To our peoples becoming family." Minho smiled. "I like to think that too." They stood together in silence, human and Valori, looking at the names of those who had given everything. Behind them, the sounds of the city drifted through the garden. Children laughing. People talking. Life continuing. The galaxy had learned something at Velar Prime. They had learned that humans repay their debts. They had learned that a promise made is a promise kept, no matter how much time passes, no matter what it costs. Some species feared that, others embraced it, but everyone remembered it, and that was exactly what Elder Nuri had asked for. 250 years ago, when she gave her life for strangers she had never met. "Remember us." She had said they did, they always would.